Welcome everyone through all time and space to an all-new episode of Weebs on the Weekends, a podcast where we break down the anime news highlights of the week and give a retrospective look at anime that premiered 10 years ago. Today's episode will be covering the news from the second week of July 2021 and give our thoughts on whether to resurrect or rebury the 2011 anime Yuru Yuri. My name is Jay Johnson, a part-time weeb and full-time English language sensei, and with me, as always, is my co-host Sam Martinez, part-time weeb and full-time auto mechanic. Now, Sam, I've actually been reading Solo Leveling, and I was not aware that it was going to get me in the mood of reading more manhwa again. And I'm very much in the camp of there's certain titles or manga included that can't really be animated, and I feel like
you feel like Solo Leveling is one of those properties that it can't be animated properly? Well, so what's the biggest appeal about Solo Leveling? Is it a video game like with Sword Arts Online or Log Horizon? Is it an isekai? But what makes it so good?
Just along the lines of, I've only gotten about 30 chapters in, so I can't really to say to its greatness. But what really hooked me was that you very much get a sense of game mechanics, and the creators have a good sense of game design, which you can't really say for Sword Art Online. There's been multiple video essays on the topic of how it's a terrible game interface, how the hub is so jarring. So if you ever play Dota 2 or League of Legends, then you know how important hub design or HUD is. But when it comes to Solo Leveling, the thing that really hooks you into it is the sense of progression that the main character is going through, and what the grind is. And I think it's one of those stories that really leans into gamer culture. And I've kind of been sinking my hours and days into Minecraft. So I'm not so much of a hardcore gamer or anything, but
have you had a chance to get to the dragon yet, or you're still grinding on that?
I am basically at the dragon's door, and I'm just trying to figure out the best way to take it down, because it has multiple health bars. It can regenerate. They're essentially, if you get hit by the dragon in a certain way, you can get flung into a black hole, because there's a black hole near the dragon. So it's strategizing before you enters the den, and I'm not trying to cheat it as much. I'm not looking up YouTube videos or look how other people do it. I'm just trying to go off the information that I have about it already and just try to be best prepared for that. But yeah, I'm kind of in a camp of reading a lot of Solo Leveling, Minecraft. School's starting within the next month, so I'm kind of winding down my summer vacation. But how about you, Sam? How you been for the past week since we talked?
I would say I've been doing all right. I was able to, I told you a little bit earlier, I was able to watch America, the motion picture. And now that I mention it, there is a snippet in there that I can talk about that's not much of a spoiler, but essentially how irreverent that this is. They being the main group, they try to find somebody that is the best, at least the fastest racer, and they're pseudo chronologically accurate, so everything is being pulled by carts and horses, and they essentially go to an underground horse racing thing, but it's set up like Tokyo Drift, and you would see the horses, they have these bioluminescent paints to make it seem like they have lights that go on, and the carts hop up and down like they have hydraulics. It's just it's just a good fun time. I also saw on Netflix the show for the new Resident Evil series. I think we might have talked about it before. Infinite Darkness. I've had that on the queue. Been wanting to watch it, and I also caught up on I'm a Spider, So What, and the season finale just sort of blew my mind, because who I thought was who um, was not who I expected. If I can be as vague as possibly can. But essentially, like when you're watching Spider near the end, because essentially you follow a group of kids who gets isekai'd, and you're trying to figure out which kid from the class is which character and which person as they were isekai'd, and essentially the person that I thought was the main character wasn't the main character, and it's a big reveal at the end of the series, at least at the end of the first season. I've also started Slime season 2, so it was nice seeing. I forgot what the dragon's name was. Voldera.
Vildora, yeah.
Yeah, Voldora. It was nice seeing him in his human form and how braggadocious he is. And he even, because he was reading all of Rimaru's manga in his mind, he is now an otaku and essentially acts like a shonen protagonist. So when Rimaru tells him that he needs to subdue his aura, he actually goes into a Dragon Ball Z pose and increases his ki so that everybody knows that uh, Voldera Tempest is here.
Pretty good stuff for the summer season. Yeah, I mean, there's some notable exceptions that we left out last week that we talked about what we were expecting. But, if it's not gauging our attention, I'm sure we'll talk about it from the ones that we picked up, or even at the very end of the year, if we come back to like summer anime and have things that, we want to catch up before we make our best or our top 10 list of the end of the year. But that brings us to our first segment of the day, which is the news, which, Sam, you got the news for this week?
That I do. Let's go ahead and get started. So for the first bit of news that I have, there's an anime franchise that's coming out. It's called Shinka no Mi Shiranai Uchi ni Kachigumi Jinsei. And they have just revealed their main cast and staff, and they are slated to premiere in the fall of this year, 2021. And essentially, this franchise, it's based off of an adventure fantasy novel by, what is this person's name? Hold on, I have it right here. If the author, they're just simply known as Miku. Okay, that might be like their pen name. But essentially, the story, it follows this main character known as Hiragai Seiichi, and essentially it's this person who's known to be overtly ugly, dirty, smelly, and essentially is ostracized for his physical appearance. However, he has a very positive disposition despite being ostracized, and he tries to be nice to people. And one day he hears the voice of God over the PA system, how him and the whole class is being transported to another world. And while he is over there, when he arrives, he realizes that his body is completely different. And, well, hold on. His body changes after eating what's known as the fruit of evolution. And not only that, but he is also having a companion who is the first heroine of the franchise, but apparently she's a little girl that can turn to and from a gorilla. So it seems to be an isekai. Uh, Let me see. The genre for this, I'm not getting a genre for here, but I'm thinking that it's going to be a little bit of a light comedy of isekai stuff. But after hearing that, Jay, as we've seen throughout this past year, it's just we're being slammed by isekai. So does this one sound any different, or does this one seem like it's just like another run of the mill?
Along the lines of what's interesting about this is that this is one of those productions by Studio Feels, or Feel,
Mm-hmm.
single feel. fill and then a period. But yeah, this is a production by that studio, and they did Hina Matsuri, which I very much enjoyed from about 3 years ago. It's a the yakuza boss taking in the daughter who has superpowers, and
Oh, that one. Yeah, you've mentioned that one before.
yeah, plus, and they also are responsible for Kiss X Sis, which we talked about. We were going to do an episode about that last year for 2010, but decided against that. But yeah, that's what's really catching my attention about this particular production. Not really the subject matter, because it sounds like, yeah, box standard isekai, and that it's going to be a companion story of a neglected loser hero traveling around with a cute lolly in a magical world, and they have to save it from Demon Lord X. So, of like what you just said, like, yeah, it seems box standard, but there's always going to be a surprise to the isekai story. There generally is some kind of twist, and with the past couple of years, we've seen it become more ridiculous. The anime communities kind of lean more into more of the light novel adaptations versus like manga adaptations. So those are those ridiculously long titled names like Transported to Another World with a Smartphone is kind of the one that I always go to because
Yeah.
that's so ridiculous. But for this title, it has a very long light novel title as well. So generic, probably, maybe an interesting twist. Probably won't even check it out, but what are you going to do when it comes to certain isekais? They sell.
You said they sell, that's all they do. Well, talking about something that sells, right, leads on to the next bit of stories. So, essentially, the August issue of Square Enix's monthly Shonen Gangan had announced that Hiromu Arakawa, the author for Full Metal Alchemist and Silver Spoon, is going to be launching a new manga in the magazine soon. And what they have is basically a rough sketch of her new work. Nothing too incredibly revealing, but it this news was released on the 20th anniversary of Arakawa's Full Metal Alchemist manga. So hearing this, that the mangaka for Full Metal Alchemist is going to be taking the pen to paper again, Jay, what are your thoughts on that?
Mangakas, like any other literary creator, kind of just have to do it once. Like, really, like if you look at like To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee, like that's the only book that she published in 89 years. I believe she passed away.
But she did a sequel to it. It was supposed to be when Scout was an adult, but it did not reach the same acclaim as To Kill a Mockingbird did, though.
Yeah, there's a whole story about that, but that's
Uh-huh.
called Go Set a Watchman, and it's a
Yes.
prequel series
Oh, my
to.
apologies.
No, I mean
Yeah.
it's a prequel series, as in To Kill a Mockingbird takes place in the interim of that story. There's a whole thing to talk about there, but I just brought up
Okay.
Harper Lee because of To Kill a Mockingbird is like her work versus
Mm-hmm.
that she didn't want to have To Set a Watchman published ever. So just speaking to Full Metal Alchemist series is like no one talks about Silver Spoon, and when great mangakas do like great works, they don't have to do anymore. They can
Yeah.
kind of go down in history as like one and done because of how substantial the work is to the medium. And I want to think about along the lines of why is she doing this? Because of maybe the 20th anniversary, of course, of Full Metal Alchemist, where the anime got published or released, I think 2 years later. So we'll probably cover Full Metal Alchemist, the first iteration of it, in 2 years from now. But why is she doing this now? I'm interested in more of that story, which doesn't
Mm-hmm.
seem to be revealed yet. I guess creators don't really need a reason to do more works. But when you look at like the history of female mangakas, you can. I mean, we talked about Blue Exorcist on the podcast
Yes.
before. There's like famous cases of fruit baskets, even D Gray Man, kind of keeping with that Full Metal Alchemist theme. But yeah, to say that I'm interested is not really true. I think it's
Do you think it? Are you suspect? Do you think that it's a little sus, like a bit of a cash grab, or do you think that she has another good story to tell?
maybe another good story to tell. I mean, it's been 20 years, so just thinking of like Kishimoto with Naruto and Samurai 7, Samurai 8.
Yeah,
Sometimes mangakas can't really come back to the medium like years after their prominent work has been concluded. So I'm anticipating it, I guess, but maybe not interested, if that makes sense.
because this is one bit of work that I forgot to mention earlier that she had done: the heroic legend of Arslan, which is Arslan Senki. And from what I can tell, it didn't gain as much traction as Full Metal Alchemist did, but I did see that more in circulation than Silver Spoon. So it may not be Full Metal Alchemist, but it was still pretty good. So maybe she has a couple more stories within her to say. And going on, continuing the motif of stories, it was revealed on Twitter that by Koji Megumi that the final chapter for his manga Bloody Monday, also known as, no, hold on, I'm trying to think if no, that's the name of his work, not the name of the chapter. But Bloody Monday, aka Kanki Banka, is that he has finished drawing it, and essentially, he had launched this manga back in November 2020, and this manga is supposed to give a historical fiction account of G-Con. I'm sorry, not G-Con, but the historical figure known as Matsunaga Hisahide, and he is often portrayed as a villainous figure in Japan's Sengoku period. And basically, the work follows his rise from poverty and to his time to where he's competing as a warlord for supremacy in Japan until his suicide after his defeat at the hand of Oda Nobunaga. So the reason why I had picked this was mainly because of some of the historical pieces, and we've had talked sometime before about how Japan likes to embrace the history that they have, and I just recently learned that one of my movies that I follow has huge historical significance than what I had previously thought. So, what do you think about this short-lived franchise getting enough traction to be listed as a news? Because I found this off of Anime News Network, and the fact that I don't know, I think that it probably makes it a big deal that that they at least announced the running mangas.
Whenever it comes to like producers and their own proclivities for what they like, it's very odd when something gets put into the spotlight and for any number of reasons that someone feels passionate about it, and any stories outside or around Nobunaga could have been adapted in some kind of way, even with Hisei Haida. Hisei Haida. Um, I'm saying his name wrong, but the main character of this story is like, I think
Yes.
he's been adapted before. I think he appears not in Fate, not in anywhere in Fate, but I think he appears in the franchise Sengoku Basara.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so like anything around Nobunaga or the Sengoku period kind of has been portrayed in some kind of way. So I'm not surprised that this has gained popularity since Japan is like so not gung ho, but they're so wrapped up inside that period that any version, anything that diverts from like the main story of Nobunaga, even though we've seen that in the previous anime season with Yusuke. Yeah,
Yasuke,
Yasuke.
Yasuke.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised, and that this caught attention for that reason.
Definitely understandable, and I would like to look at it to see how closely historical it would be, or whether or not it would be more fantastical like Yasuke would be. Mainly because I guess because my Japanophiles sort of showing here a bit, because I would like to just the fact that they have so much, what's the word, so much honor and respect for this time, especially for Oda Nobunaga. It would be nice to get a proper historical account just to see how all that transpired. And I can see that, it would be redundant for the Japanese populace to have to see that over and over again. Much like, again, just to bring up the only example that I can think of is America the Motion Picture, just because I just watched it. Like, growing up here in the States, that Sam Adams didn't actually make the beer, but in the movie, they use the play on words and they make him the one who quote unquote invented beer, and make him a complete frat bro because of it. So like it's funny to us that way, but say like a Japanese person trying to watch that film, they wouldn't necessarily get it. So I would like to at least appreciate that historical account, and the fact that this novel was nominated for the Naoki Prize for Literature. The fact that it was eyeballed for some awards, it makes me want to at least like look into this to see how it takes the franchise. And talking about a franchise that has almost hit a prize mark, we are going to talk about Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Throssopod Time. And this article was just saying that they were on the cusp of breaking the 10 billion yen mark that only 8 other anime films in history have managed to surpass. One of them being our ever beloved uh, Demon Slayer Mugen Train. And so, what are your thoughts on this, Jay? That when this movie was finally released in theaters, that it did not hit as big of a milestone that Mugen Train did.
Oh, just along the lines of its popularity has probably waned over time because, again, you have to look at the international market versus the domestic market, and
Mm-hmm.
Evangelion has always been, at least in the Western hemisphere, kind of a mixed bag because
Yeah.
there's never been a constant stream of it being available to the West, because I think some of the installments aren't even available in Blu-ray. It's been very uh, held up with their licensing agreement in the West, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just, again, Mugen Train is a story that's self-contained inside of itself, and definitely got the popularity boost of. I mean, we talked about this plenty times in news stories, and we counted
Yeah.
its basically weekly growth in the box office from everything about the ninja tweets when episode 19, I believe it was the one that caught all the
Yes, it was
attention of the
episode
West.
19,
Yeah,
as you
and
said.
then
Yeah.
and as well as Ufotable coming back for the movie itself, that just kind of aided in it. And Evangelion is a story that can't be easily digested. So same thing with all the Heaven Fields movies with the Fate
Oh yeah,
Stay
with the Fate,
franchise.
with the Fate series, you have to. I definitely understand what you mean. Like you have to put in the time and the work. And for those of you, I'm probably going to be one of them who want to see the other Evangelion films to get a proper picture on it. The article also says that they will be streamed exclusively on Amazon Prime. And just that this one, the 3.0 plus the 1.0, is the fourth movie in the quote unquote rebuild Evangelion film series, which may or may not be the proper timeline for the franchise. So, Jay,
Exactly. Even when you say something that, you have to put the quotations around proper, because it's one of those things of, is what's going on actually going on, or is it some kind of offshoot to it? So it's not even time travel. It's just, you see, even with a base explanation of Evangelion, you can't really do anything shorthand. Same thing as with Steins Gates, or what's the other franchise that I'm thinking about? I guess Fate. You can't just easily explain it. So to say that it didn't reach that benchmarker, or when it does reach that benchmarker, it definitely has been complicated for Evangelion's complication of its plot, as well as not really being in the public eye recently. Because I forget when the previous movie came out, just I guess 3.0 came out, which I think was maybe 5 years ago. So, and before that, the time span between each of those movies is kind of
it's like, so what you're saying is it's essentially experiencing what Attack on Titan have experienced, where you have that extended period of time in between the release of the work, so like the fans fire is sort of waned by the time that the new installment is released. But to give them their credit, when this article was released, the Evangelion movie did earn 9.9 billion yen. So it was like that 0.001 billion away from making that 10 billion yen mark. So it was close, but no cigar. So do you think that they were just fake fans out there, Jay?
Fake fans is just no, because again, I think Evangelion came out. We talked about it in our mech episode, or a recap of the history of the mech genre, but it's a dinosaur. And to say that, Evangelion is like the last stronghold, beacon, bastion for the mech genre, this just shows, it kind of just reflects in its, its gross income of box office, is that, the mech genre is kind of done for. So I'm very glad that this is the last movie, because it's received critical acclaim. It's like, yeah, we finally went out with a bang. It's a good ending. Everyone's happy with it. So we can just let it die now.
We can let Evangelion die, but hopefully with this last news story that I have for you, we can have the mech genre live just a little bit longer. The franchise, or at least the new series for the Blade Runner franchise, known as Black Lotus, they have unveiled new cast members for this series, and some of them being people from Little Witch Academia, from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Ray Zero, and then no Shibutai, and even the Freight series, like you have mentioned earlier. So I'm trying to see here when it's supposed to reveal. I know that it's essentially supposed to be a conjoined work of Adult Swim and Crunchyroll. So it makes me a little bit more excited for it. They say that it's supposed to premiere sometime in 2021 with the English dub on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim, but they don't really give me a date. I figured I once wanted to give you this article so that you can talk a little bit about it, because I know that you are a fan of the Blade Runner franchise and wanted to get your name on, or at least not your name, but your uh, opinion, if you have one, on some of these choices in cast.
Well, not about the cast, but I'm glad you connected this with the previous story, because this is another production that is way too late. they kind of missed the boat. They kind of missed the boat on Blade Runner, because I mean, it's one of those things, we've been stuck in this COVID world for a while now, but Blade Runner 2049 was 4 years ago. And
you're right, that was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so this is coming way past anyone's remembrance. And for whatever they're trying to do, again, we can talk about what is like Adult Swim doing now, which I haven't been really keeping track of, and what kind of properties they're showing. But just to speak to what this could have been really a outstanding piece of work, because it was a collaborative project between the creator of Cowboy Bebop with the Blade Runner franchise. Same thing with Adult Swim and Crunchyroll, and Crunchyroll has so much money to throw around right now. Same
I
thing
know,
in the
right?
camp.
It seems like Crunchyroll is trying to be the Netflix version for anime.
Well, yeah, but Netflix is the Netflix of anime if you have a VPN.
No. I meant like you know how when Netflix when they first started getting heavy into the streaming and streaming scene, they started making their own works. It seems like Crunchyroll is starting to do that too, where it's like Netflix did it, we can do it as well. So it seems like they're trying to make they're trying to do what Netflix did with their own shows, like the Marvel Netflix shows, things of that nature. It seems like Crunchyroll is trying to do that same thing.
Yeah, that's fair, and especially with their whatever the business word for it, their combination with
Acquisition.
Funimation merger with
Merger, yeah.
merger with Funimation. So it does make sense that this is something that was basically in talks before that happened, and probably what's been delaying this project is the merger as well, because you can't really do much when mergers are happening because
Yeah.
the government is investigating if you're going to hold a lion's share of media creation if mergers happen, which you can't do because that's against the law. But talking about Blade Runner, this is, I think, the third project they were supposed to do. Oh no, I'm thinking about Pacific Rim. But the previous installment to this project was Blade Runner Blackout, which was the prequel to Blade Runner 2049. This gets really confusing because all the Blade Runner has the years in it. But essentially, it's telling the story of what happened after the original Blade Runner, that a blackout happened in the world, and that's what caused the events of 2049 to come about. And I'm very much in the same vein as how I felt with Cyberpunk, that any world that deals with like androids and the distinctions between AI and human consciousness is so engaging. But like I said at the beginning of my rant, my soapbox, is that this is just so missed the boat on it, and no one's going to care about this when it comes out. And
yeah,
I think it
where
would
were
care.
you 20 years ago?
Well, where were they 2 years ago, essentially?
Yeah.
Because like if this came out right before quarantine procedures got enacted, then I think this would have been a hit on like the reception scale. And even if they were going to Netflix, I think it would get more traction than what it's doing with Crunchyroll, because this is mixed in the bag of, like you just mentioned, that there is a Resident Evil new Infinite Darkness, as well as other programs of the kind of akin to Western properties being adapted in animated form. But yeah, man, I am kind of disappointed that it took this long to get to this, and I've kind of lost interest in it.
Oh damn! I didn't mean to bring you down. I meant to bring you up with with this news article. I'm sorry for bringing up bad memories, Jay. But that's all the news that I have. Man, I wish I had a better news for you now.
No, it's all good.
If it makes you feel any better, the latest part for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, JoJo Leon, it should be ending this year.
It doesn't. I'm actually surprised you didn't mention that Jujutsu Kaisen came off of hiatus. And do you know this?
It did.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so I guess I'm bringing my own news story. So it was announced this week that Jujutsu Kaisen's hiatus has been.
He got better, because I know, like, we talked a little bit about it before. Like, they essentially forced him to take a break so he didn't burn himself out.
Yeah, exactly. Because the popularity of the manga, they were like, "Yeah, you're too valuable to go under the crunch that we usually put under our mangakas, and they were like, yeah, we're forcing you to take medical leave, and the situation has been mediated or lessened to the point that they feel like he can return to doing the work properly. So I believe the first return issue is going to be published in, sorry, I'm thinking about which issue it would be, but it's essentially the first week of August. So you just have
Oh,
about 2
okay,
weeks
okay,
for the
okay.
new chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen to come out. So that's happy news. Not that I'm reading the
Awesome.
manga, but that's happy news for you. I'm still
Yes,
sad
yes,
about Blade Runner.
because I no, because I was I'm up to date on the Viz app on all of my manga, and I'm like, when was that blurb had out come out? Like I was literally on my app trying to see if they were going to if they had released a date and time for the newest chapter, but they didn't. But no, that's good. I'm glad that they gave him like at least a couple more weeks to where he can pace himself out accordingly.
Yeah, that's always good. Yeah, because like we don't need another. Man, I'm really bad with names, but I mean the Berserk creator was just old, not really old, but didn't die of
No.
terrible complications of his work. But that happens way too often, and we can speak about that
Yeah.
probably. It's a pandemic. It's a pandemic, epidemic inside
Epidemic.
the manga and anime community. But anyways, yeah, more happy news. But anyways, yeah. So moving into our
we're just full of rainbows and sunshine today.
yeah, but Sam, thank you for the news. I'm glad I was able to bring my own news story because that really caught my attention. But with
Yes.
that, we are moving on to our 10-year review of the anime, or at least the 2011 anime Yuru Yuri, and I confused this with Yoru Camp last time when I alluded to that this was the next episode, because
Yes.
Yoru means easygoing or laid back, and
Mm-hmm.
Yoru Camp is laid back camp. And I was like, oh, I kind of got my Japanese mixed up again, because Yoru Yuri um, translates to easygoing girls love. And just to let me give the synopsis first, because I have
Go
so
ahead.
many thoughts about this. So
Go ahead.
this is a 2011 anime that premiered back on July 5th for a 12 episode run. It is a Japanese anime based off a manga series that is still ongoing. And
It's still going on? That's crazy.
yeah, it has 19 volumes as of last month. So this is animated by Studio Doga Koto, which we've talked about kind of around a couple times. Like, Sam, you love how heavy are those dumbbells you lift, so they're
Yes.
responsible for that. They're also
Okay.
responsible for a new game, which I very much enjoyed from like 3 years ago. Also, they're responsible for, I think, last year's Gabriel Dropout, which is based off a manga series I really enjoy. But this is in the genre of slice of life school comedy, rated PG-13. It's a story that centers on four middle school girls in their creation of the amusement club, which is a school club with no purpose other than to amuse themselves. And it's available on Crunchyroll.
Oh, it's also available on Funimation because that's where I saw it.
Of course, Funimation, Crunchyroll, yeah. Which is weird to say that because their libraries are not exact; they're not identical. So yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They're available in both places. But anyways, what I didn't realize is that second word, the Yuri, in the title means girls love. So when I first looked,
I'm sorry. You didn't because I know the genre like yaoi, is like it's boys love, but you didn't know about the girl equivalent for it. I thought you would have known that.
well, I did
Or
know it. I just didn't
yeah,
know that
that is still kept that meaning in that phrase, Yuru Yuri,
yeah, exactly,
right?
because
Okay.
Yuri means lily, and that's the actual kanji. Um, so when I
Oh,
first
okay.
read it, in the translation, it read as easygoing Lily, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's going to be like a gardening club, and it's like cute girls doing cute things. And I'm like, oh, I'm so hyped for that. But this is such a slap in the face. Well, no, that's not fair to say. This is such an out of left field series that I'm still having mixed feelings on, because we give the 3-episode test, and with 12 episodes in total, a 3-episode test for a Moe girls doing cute things series is really hard to gauge for that reason, because there's really no plot. There's really nothing but girls doing cute things. Again, that's what the genre is just called by itself. And I was thinking this is going to be more of a decent follow-up to Nichijou, K-On, Lucky Star. Mm-hmm. But no. It is a side of Moe you don't see very often. You don't really see girls on girls love stories, or quote unquote the L word. I was trying to make a Scott Pilgrim joke, but I don't think that's going to play well. But
you mean
the other L word.
you what was it? No, because it was lesbians, right? That was the joke in Scott Pilgrim.
It was, yeah. I just didn't know how to play it, because it just came to my mind, and I was like, oh, can I make that joke? But I didn't know how to set it up properly. But yeah, it's very odd. Yeah, so A Channel is the other one I was kind of competing with. Because a lot of moes can go by the side. Like we talked about isekais, about how generic they can be and how dime a dozen they can be. So I went to tackle either A Channel or this series, because I've always seen these girls. They've always been like you can even go into GIFs of cute anime girls, and one of the girls from the series show up, and like they have cute expressions. They're doing funny things. Again, the whole point of the series is to amuse themselves, to get into funny situations with each other. So I thought it was like, oh, it's going to be like Nichijou. But the base premise of this series just lies to your face, because it's not at all what it's about. And I can go more about that, Sam, but do you have any initial thoughts about this? How do you feel?
I was a little bit like you too, because like again, like looking at the title is like, it's not going to be about girls' love, is it? Because I went and I looked at the English version for the title. It was Yuru Yuri, Happy Go Lily. It's like, okay, I guess it's play on word for like Happy Go Lucky, so it's like Happy Go Lily, right? And like going through like at first, like some of the lesbian jokes that they had, one girl grab another girl's boobs. It's like, oh, it's like you're filling into your bra or something like that, right? It's like some generic joke that you would see in some other anime. I'm like, okay, that's funny, I guess, for the umpteenth time. And like after, like it kept going, because the one thing that sort of like, because as you kept watching, like it started leaning into the girls' love pretty hard, but the one running gag that I liked was how the main character, how essentially her main shtick throughout the whole of series is she wants to be more impactful, because they joke around that she's so bland, that she's so quote unquote normal, that her friends basically take up the screen, and there are times when the story just shifts focus on her other friends. Like on the second episode, she's like, my name is Akaza Akari, and this is my first year in middle school, and I want to make a great impression. And like as she's mid-sentence, one of her friends, Kyoko, it was Kyoko, she's running late to school, and then like the camera just follows her like throughout the rest of the thing. It's just a running gag that the show does. And so like I've seen the first 3 episodes, and like by the 3rd episode, like I was starting to feel okay, like this is it's hitting a little hard on the head. And then I went back and I rewatched the first episode, and it made me realize, just how in your face it is with the lesbian jokes, because they poke fun at the fact that the main character's sister is like a closet Yuri person and would steal her little sister's underwear and even has a body pillow where she can practice kissing and things like that. And they essentially play it off as a joke, and I'm just like thinking, it's like she is living with a predator almost, and nobody wants to address it. It's like, is she safe at home? What is this? And I try to go on, and they have the beach episode in number 4, and it's I tried. I honestly tried.
Yeah, so there's a lot of uh, it's not well, maybe scandalous is the word, but
Mm-hmm.
there's like a lot of borderline inappropriateness to this series to be considered PG-13. So we can talk
Yeah.
about like ecchi series doing the same thing and getting the same rating, but how, you know, with the character models that they're using, these are middle school students. They're
That
not
was
really
one thing that,
saying,
yeah, I'm sorry. Go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
oh yeah, so like there's nothing wrong with like pursuing this kind of representation, but it matters how you present it too. And it's
Yeah.
just so distasteful. It's nothing comedic about it, to my, my own sensibilities, that they do a lot to make the characters unsympathetic. And I think that's the giant weakness of the series, especially in the 3 episodes. And if they're already getting into
Mm.
the beach episode and episode 4, I don't know how I feel about that either, because these are very much on the um, lower end of that age group that you would expect this
Yeah.
story to be told for. So like it would be less skeevy if they were in high school, I guess, but it still rides that line. But
No,
how
exactly. And
they're
yeah.
how they're approaching it, like the joke you talked about, grabbing the boobs, and how the vice president or maybe the assistant of the student council kind of has these
Mhm.
like open fantasy scenes in her head and has them in very suggestive positions, and it just seems to be weirdly written for a audience I'm not sure who's going to appreciate it, because if you're a young girl who's experiencing these feelings, what is this supposed to tell you? If you're a young
Yeah.
boy watching this to learn about girls that feel that certain way, what are you supposed to learn about this? If you're guys our age and you're looking at this, you're creeped out because you feel very much
Exactly.
like a pedophile looking in on uh, a girl's trying to understand who they are, which, if we were going to have a third category of rewrites, this is definitely a rewrite, but
No. As you said, like men our age, right, or creeped out. I felt so creeped out, and as you said, like these people are in middle school, and I know that Japanese middle school, the ages are different from the U.S. middle school. Like for instance, I had to look it up. Like ages on average for Japan's middle school years are from 12 to 15, whereas the U.S. is from 11 to 13. But still, it's like they're still on that lower end, right? And it also makes it a little bit weirder too. Well, not weirder, but it also makes it a little bit more unsettling, that the age of consent in Japan is 13. So the fact that you are talking about these girls that are still essentially kids and having them in these suggestive positions, and even having them imagine these other girls in these suggestive positions, like me as being a bystander, it feels really, really odd and creepy. And you know it's weird because I would think that this was written by a man, but this was also written by a female author who does other Yuri stuff as well. So I don't know, maybe it's a subgenre in the Yuri genre, but as you said, it's kind of weird that something like this would even exist, or at least like have jokes that would go as far as that.
right. And if they were going to cover this topic again, like I don't like to talk about like other recommendations of like, oh
Hmm.
well, it's done better over here. That kind of like just discredits the work for what it's trying to do. But like I was thinking about where has I've seen this done better. Like even from 2018, I believe, was O Maiden of the Savage Season, which was basically not addressing the same thing, but addressing adolescence and like doing more with that subject matter than just making a joke out of people's sexuality, which this series is definitely doing. They're getting gags out of girls being inappropriate, but being inappropriate in a non kind of human way. And
Yes.
again, that's what's so jarring about it, is that they're not joking how girls or people would joke in situations like this. And it's just played up for gags. And I thought it was a gag comic when, you look at this being a manga adaptation. But yeah, you did mention something, Sam. Like, there is like two categories with lesbian mangas or lesbian magazine series. And this comes from the type that is called Yori Hime, or lesbian princess, I guess would be the translation, which just covers very openly lesbian relationships, not anything explicit in the sexuality, but like kissing, making out, public displays of affection. And then you have like the closeted Yori mangas. That's Yori Hime S, I believe. So it's kind of like the closeted version. So like more subtle, more intimate focus. But this is such a weird series to kind of have that title. Like, so going back to my original point of why I would definitely want to rebury this so nobody sees this and get misled by the title, because you talk about easygoing. Well, you called it the Happy Go
Lily.
Yeah, that's the one on. That's the translation that my anime list used. So, but laid back is the way that I like to translate it. So, like, what does that title really mean? Like, lesbians are easy? Like, I think that's what is supposed to be implied, because there's really no sexual harassment that goes on, like with ecchi series. Like, the guy always gets slapped. There's really no punishment. The girls are kind of just easy about it. They're not really responding.
It's so weird, because like there's, like you said, there's that sense of double standard where it's like, if a guy does it, there's obviously repercussions, but if a girl does it, like, oh, it's this cute girl is just doing cute girl things, right? It's like, are you serious? I mean, no means no, and on like in both respects. And I would say, like, to give some defense to this work, right, is the fact that like they're following these group of girls who go to an all-girls school, and I don't have any experience going to a school of that nature, so I don't know how romance would happen or how children will experiment in that environment. But as you said before, the way that these girls interact with one another, it seems borderline inhuman, or like it's mainly just done for a gag. And just because of their age group, it comes off creepy, at least in my opinion.
All right, so you're in the firm camp of rebury as well?
Yes, this needs to be 12 feet down.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that wasn't really hard. I mean, it was a shock because, I was going into it like reading like, oh, it's an amusement club, like after reading the synopsis. And I was like,
the synopsis.
Originally reading the title, I was like, oh, it's going to be about cute girls doing gardening. That's just kind of what stuck in my head. Even like, I was like, okay. But then I read the synopsis and I was like, okay, so it's an amusement club. So again, like, it is a series that does a lot of injustice to the group that is trying to represent, and you just kind of get left with this feeling of ickiness, this sense of grossness to it. So I'm kind of upset that I didn't pick A channel, because A channel seems more above board than this. But to talk about, not to go into delve into other like LGBTQ positive series, but like subject matters like this, like, has been done like by Scum's Wish. I think that would be a very interesting comparison. So I don't know if we're ever going to do like a comparison series or segment, but it's a double feature, I guess would be the other word for it. But yeah, there are series that this series might go well with to show how garbage it is and how good the other one is. So I think that's what this will serve. But for right now, it's a reburied, and let's set it on fire after we leave the graveyard. So Sam, that closes up our 10-year discussion on Yuru Yuri, or Happy Go Lily, or easygoing lesbians, I guess. So we wrapped up the news. That wraps up our episode for today. And Sam, you have the pick for next week's anime, but I can't recall. Is it Sacred 7? I believe
it's Sacred 7.
Yeah,
yes,
sweet. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because it has a killer OP, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. But Sam, you had the news for the second week of July. That's all done. We had our 10-year discussion, so that finished up the episode. So would you like to close this out? What do you have to say for us?
Akarin, Yuru Yuri podcast episode. Wamo Auriu Desu.